Alright guys, welcome back to another classic pay-per-view review, and today is WCW Halloween Havoc 1998 from Las Vegas. And the first thing that happens on this show is Bobby the Brain Heenan, Tony Schiavone, and Mike Tenay open up the show, and Bobby Heenan puts on this little Halloween mask. And Tony Schiavone's talking to Mike Tenay, and Bobby's waiting for him to turn around to see the mask, and it takes forever. And when Tony Schiavone finally turns and looks at him, he completely no-sold this. And it was just really bizarre. But then we get some Nitro Girls. They did little segments throughout the show. Mean Gene brings out Rick Steiner. Steiner says he will teach his brother a lesson. Buff Bagwell comes out. Of course he does. And Buff says the NWO doesn't work one-on-one. He knows. He wants to watch Rick's back later. Rick says he doesn't trust him. And Buff says, look in these eyes. In these eyes, you can see a guy who's ready to watch your back. Oh my God. So Steiner is convinced by this and agrees. So it's going to be Rick Steiner versus Scott Steiner with Buff Bagwell out there to watch his back. Let's see how well that goes. Then we get Raven and Chris Jericho. Raven comes out, he cuts a promo and refuses to wrestle. Says he doesn't feel like wrestling and he's not gonna. Jericho says all the Jericho-holics came to see him, and he is disappointed he can't wrestle such an icon like Raven, leader of the flock. He calls him a loser, and Raven runs back in for the match. Mike Tenay is putting over Raven enjoying pain and how he would rather pass out than tap out. Jericho exposes the turnbuckle, and Bobby Heenan says, because of the whole Raven enjoying pain thing, he says he may be in for a good time coming up here. Jericho kicks out of the DDT. Canyon comes out. Raven tosses Jericho into him. He goes for another DDT, but Jericho counters with a Lion Tamer, and Raven taps. This was a good match. Jericho keeps the TV title, but I would have liked to see Raven win this match because he has been on a losing streak, and the flock broke up, and all of that, but Jericho was always awesome here too, so it was kind of win-win. Alright, what's next here? Hogan and Bischoff come out. Hogan talks about laying out Horace Hogan. Shows a clip from Nitro with Hogan whipping Horace. And he says he will do the same thing to Warrior. Hogan says that he will tear out Warrior's heart, separate his heart from his soul, and then bury it in a toxic waste dump below the ring. Hogan's words. Very crazy promo, but he is feuding with Warrior. So, damn it, it makes sense, I guess. Disco Inferno versus Juventud Guerrero, the Hoovy Juice, for number one contender to face Kidman for the Cruiserweight title later on in the show. Disco wins with the pile driver, so Disco's doing double duty tonight. And this was a good match, too. When I was looking this up on Wikipedia, I saw all these other matches, and I was like, where the hell are they? I can't find them. Apparently they weren't televised, so I think Wrath beat Ming, Alex Wright beat Fit Finley, and Saturn beat Lodi. So there was a lot of matches on this show. Oh, what's next here? All my notes are all separated for this one, so I gotta flip around. Scott Steiner comes out, says he's been with his freaks, and he's in town and he's ready to pound. Says he's beat Bagwell. He's beat up Rick his entire life. And he tells Bagwell to tag with Rick Steiner, and he's going to tag with the Giant. So the Giant comes out, and J.J. Dillon asks if they're confident enough to put the tag titles on the line. And if Steiner and the Giant lose the titles, Steiner has to face Rick one-on-one after the match. So they agree to do that. Then we get Disco versus Kidman for the Cruiserweight title. During the match, Disco tells Kidman, turn the music down. Yes, Mom. What the fuck was this? I have no idea what he was talking about. It was really weird. Disco hits the pile driver, but he's too slow with the cover, so Kidman gets out. He kicks out, and Kidman wins with the shooting star. This was fine too. Scott Steiner and the Giant versus Rick Steiner and Bagwell for the tag titles. Oh my goodness. the first thing I noticed is the Giant smoking a cigarette. I don't know why, but I found that to be very funny. Of course, Buff turns on Rick Steiner almost immediately and then runs away. The Giant goes for a missile drop kick but hits Steiner, so Rick hits the top rope bulldog on the Giant for the win. New tag team champions, I guess. I don't know. I can't remember what they did with this, if Rick is forced to team with someone who turned on him or if Rick just has both belts. I can't remember, but it's definitely goofy. So he gets his match with Scott Steiner. At first I'm thinking this is no disqualification because of the way things were going here. The Giant was trying to attack him, but Rick fought him off. I mean, I guess that's what they could have done, just have the Giant attack and end the match that way, but it gets weirder. So Rick is working over Steiner when a man in a suit and a Bill Clinton mask hops the rail. He beats up security, and then Stevie Ray comes out in his only appearance on this show to hand this man a flapjack. So this Bill Clinton guy gets in the ring, he attacks Rick Steiner, he hits the ref, and it's Buff Bagwell. That's a friend, Marcus. They call me Marcus, that's a lifelong friend. It just reminds me of, he said that in one of those Wrestling Observer interviews he did, and it was probably the worst interview they've ever done because Buff was completely out of his mind. But when he opened up the interview, I think it was with Alvarez, he says that. He's like, Marcus, people who call me Marcus, that's a lifelong friend. Other people call me Buff or something. It was weird, but he was completely out of his mind for that interview. Anyway, what was I talking about here? So the bell rings because this man's attacking people, and Buff picks up the ref's hand and makes him count, but Rick Steiner continues to kick out of everything. Rick comes back, takes out Buff, hits the top rope bulldog on Scott. Another ref comes out, and Rick gets the win. And a massive push here. I mean, holy crap, he beat the Giant, Scott Steiner, and then he beat Scott again with, multiple people working against him. So this was a huge push for Rick Steiner. Afterwards, it shows Buff Bagwell selling, and he's not even wearing the Bill Clinton mask anymore, but he's selling on the outside. He's like talking about how he's got to go see Monica. Oh, just so stupid. God, this guy's horrible. Anyway, Kevin Nash versus Scott Hall. This was during the Scott Hall is always drunk angle, which the best thing about that was there was one moment, and I believe it's on YouTube. It's called The Greatest Wrestling Moment of All Time, if you want to look it up. And Scott Hall has someone, I can't remember who, in an abdominal stretch. And I believe it's Vincent hands him a beer through the ropes while he's got this guy in the stretch. And he reaches over, drinks a beer, and then hands it back. And it's awesome. But you know how Scott Hall would always do that when he gets someone in the abdominal stretch and then he reaches for the ropes, like while the ref's not looking, and then grabs it. And then the ref comes back and he takes his hand off. But yeah, Scott Hall was always awesome. And he's a lot of people's favorite wrestler. And that's a lot for someone who was never really like world champion or anything like that. Scott Hall was just such a great wrestler. Razor, all of that. And this match was very entertaining. He comes out. He's staggering out with some booze. He throws it in Nash's face. He goes to work on him. Gets a lot of offense in, but eventually Nash comes back. Nash hits the big knees in the corner and says, "Would you like a double?" Bam, bam. I don't know. But anyway, Nash jackknifes him twice, and he leaves. And that was it. Hall wins the match by countout after Kevin Nash hits the jackknife twice. So Scott Hall wins. And I can't remember where they went with this. I know it lasted for a little while, but I was just thinking watching this how cool it would be to see Scott Hall, and I know it's probably never going to happen, especially now, but how cool it would be because when Kevin Nash came back as Diesel at the Royal Rumble, it would be so cool to see Scott Hall come out as Razor, and we hear the Razor Ramon entrance music. That would be so badass. Of course, he'd have to be in, much better shape and everything, but then we get the red and black Sting with this creepy goatee on his face versus Bret Hart for the U.S. title. I could never get into WCW Bret Hart for some reason. I don't know what it was, but something about Bret Hart and WCW just didn't work for me. And I was a Bret Hart fan, but I don't know if it's what they were doing with him or what, but it never clicked. And he had horrible entrance music. Just a horrible theme song. And it's like they really needed another guy with police sirens in their theme song when they had Scott Steiner. But they hyped this up as the Sharpshooter versus the Scorpion Deathlock, which is good. And Bret Hart tries to use a foreign object. He's the heel. The ref takes a bump. They hit a superplex off the top, and Bret's legs just crush the ref's legs. Felt so bad for this guy. Bret destroys Sting with the bat. He puts Sting in the Sharpshooter, but Sting is, of course, knocked out completely. The ref raises his hand 3 times, and Sting's out. So Bret Hart wins, keeps the belt. Afterwards, they spend about 5 minutes putting Sting on a stretcher. This took way too much time. We get Hulk Hogan versus Warrior. Oh, this one here. There was just so much to this. And I'm not even talking about the match. I gotta say, people really hate this match. I didn't think it was that bad. Sure, it's not a good match by any means, but it wasn't that bad. I mean, the fireball and all that stuff, I don't know. But what really hurt this, I think, was this was around the time of the infamous Warrior in the Mirror spot, where Hogan sees the Warrior in the mirror, but Bischoff doesn't see it, the announcers don't see it, but the fans and Hogan sees it. So it was really cheesy. But the first thing I notice here is there's a fan with a sign in the crowd that says Bischoff is A, retarded, B, broke, C, a gimp, or D, all of the above. Those just seem like really weird choices to me. I'm also wondering if Warrior was ever in a WCW video game. Because I can't remember, and I played a lot of those games, but I can't remember Warrior ever being in one. But anyway, we get the match. Ref takes a bump. The NWO comes out. Warrior fights them off. Hogan whips Warrior with the belt. Warrior beats Hogan with the belt. And then Hogan throws quite possibly the worst fireball in wrestling history. He's got the paper. You could see the what is that called? Oh my gosh. The flame stuff. The liquid. And you can see it spilling, and then Hogan throws it, and it doesn't work. But I have to say, at least Warrior improvised. At least he just kept going. It didn't really screw him up at all. So I was kind of impressed by that. But Hogan gets busted open. Horace Hogan comes out. He's the guy who Hogan beat the crap out of on Nitro, and he hits Warrior with a chair while Bischoff distracts the ref. So Hogan gets the win. Hogan and Hogan hug each other, even though Hogan tried to kill him a week ago. And then they try to light Warrior on fire. And the officials stopped them, and they decide to just leave. But I thought it was really funny when they're spraying him with that stuff. Then we get the main event, DDP versus Goldberg for the world title. And this was an okay match. I mean, it had Goldberg's 154-0 at this point. I do also want to mention that WCW, I like the ring, and I don't know if anybody else knows what I'm talking about, but WCW just had like a very distinct sound when guys would hit the mat. And I like different rings for different reasons, like WWE, but WCW used the cables instead of ropes, and they just had that unique sound when guys would hit the mat. But this was okay. DDP escapes the jackknife. He hits the diamond cutter, but he's too slow to cover, so Goldberg kicks out and hits the jackknife for the win, making him 155-0. He's still champion. And this was actually part of the show that had the blackout. The show ran too long, and it got cut off for a lot of people who bought the pay-per-view, so they aired this match on Nitro. Yeah, so I guess that probably hurt them somewhat. I don't think it was that big of a deal. I know a lot of people make it sound like, oh my god, half the pay-per-view was missing, and it really wasn't the case at all. It was just the last match. But there was a lot of matches on this show, and I don't know, I didn't think it was that bad of a pay-per-view. I'm sure it had its, wacky WCW moments, but for the most part it was okay. Disco Inferno did 2 good matches. I like Raven and Jericho, and even Hogan and Warrior was entertaining just for the wrong reasons. But God, I'm still trying to remember the name of that stuff. What the hell is that shit? I'm talking about the stuff you spray on a fire. What the hell is that called? Fire. It's not fire starter. It's Anyway, what the hell am I doing here? But anyways, that's my review of WCW Halloween Havoc 98. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to watch WWF Invasion 2001 next and have that video up as soon as possible. So hopefully you guys can check that one out too. And that's it. So leave your thoughts on Halloween Havoc 98 in the comments below, and thanks for watching. Bye.